influences many a times they stay with us throughout our life. I'm sure you can resonate with my statement. One such childhood influence that I had when I used to visit my grandparents' place in every vacation, be it the summer vacation, be it the Diwali vacation, even if I had 1 day holiday in my school, I used to ensure that I used to go to my grandparents' place. My grandfather one day got me this book. I was barely, I would say, 6, 7 years old, and he got this book for me. This book, I'm talking about an era where we did not have satellite television. By the way, I'm 42, so I'm talking about an era, no satellite TV, no Netflix, no mobile phones, no Wi-Fi. I'm sure most of you cannot imagine this era. But then this was a time when this book opened up my eyes to a world of wildlife, not only in India, but say across the world. It had wonderful pictures, it had wonderful stories about wildlife in Antarctica, the Arctic, Africa, South America, Asia, you name it, and it had it all. This book had a lifelong influence on me, and that influence, led me to many places. So when I grew up, I made it a point that I would visit as many jungles as possible in India. And in the last 20 years, I have been, very fortunate to have visited remote jungles like Sundarbans, be it Kaziranga, Kabini, Tadoba, Ranthambore, just to name a few. And this has been a great experience. You can see these are some of the photographs which I took in these jungles. If you go to these jungles, you'll see animals you didn't even know they existed. So this influence took me to places across India, and it has been a wonderful experience for me. Of course, I fell in love with these animals, but then there was one animal which probably fascinated me more than any other animal, and I'm sure for many of you, the Royal Bengal tiger would be your favorite animal. I don't know how many of you have actually seen a Royal Bengal tiger in its natural habitat in the jungles of India, but then I'm sure many of you would have. The initial excitement, of course, is to see this animal in its habitat, to see it in its natural surrounding, to see its beauty, to see its majesty. After that initial excitement, what happened was I started learning more and more about tigers. Of course, that initial excitement of seeing this animal in the wild took me to the next phase. So, what did I learn? After this fascination, I learned a lot about tigers. And I'm still learning. There is so much to learn that this is an ongoing journey. I have been seeing tigers for more than 10, 11 years now. And I keep learning about them. Some facts that I would love to share with you about tigers, and they're very interesting. I'm sure many of you would know this. Adult tigers, they are very territorial creatures. So if you talk of a male tiger, typically a male adult tiger, tigers typically attain adulthood by the age of 2. A male tiger typically has a territory which spans about 50 square kilometers in a particular jungle. If we talk about adult female tigresses, they typically have a territory which can range from 15 square kilometers to 30 square kilometers. And when I say they are territorial, they are extremely territorial. So if I say that, say, a particular male tiger has a territory of 50 square kilometers, he will not tolerate any other male tiger in that territory. If any other male tiger happens to enter that territory, there is I would say, a very, aggressive fight, which will definitely happen. And at times, that even leads to death of one of the tigers. Of course, male tigers are very smart. They tolerate female tigers in their territories because, of course, they want to pass on their genes to the next generation. And typically, if you look at male tigers, if they have a territory which is, say, about 50 square kilometers, they would typically have about 2 or 3 female tigresses in their territories. Now, let me delve more into their behavior. Now, in the tiger world, mating rights don't come easily. If you look at any organism, any animal, bird, insect, typically everybody wants to pass on their genes to the next generation. If you talk of tigers, that doesn't happen easily. The previous point that I made, tigers are extremely territorial. And the first picture, you can see that is a picture from Kanha Tiger Reserve, one of the most popular tiger reserves in India. And you can nicely see there are two males who are fighting over a female tigress. The female tigress is like, okay, aap ye kar lo pehle, you decide amongst yourself. Whoever is the winner, I will mate with that tiger. So, it's very difficult. It's not easy. Also, if you look at the next picture, you can see they are actually two brothers. Those two tigers who are almost in air and fighting with each other. You know, once they grow up, so typically when they are small, when they're still with their mother, of course, they are brothers. So they stay together, they stay very nicely. Like, I don't know how many of you have siblings, how many of you have brothers and sisters. Typically, you are from a generation where most of you would be single childs. But then, if you have a brother or a sister, typically you tend to grow with them. But in the tiger world, when you grow up, say when you become two, say your brother probably becomes your biggest enemy. You want to fight him, you want to say, dominate over that territory, push that person out. The mother herself pushes, I would say, if she has a male child, she would push him out so that he can grow on his own. He has to find his own territory. There have been examples in India where tigers have actually walked for 300-400 kilometers to find a suitable territory. So it's not easy being a tiger. It's a lot of hard work. Mating rights don't come easy. You have to fight for everything. And the story further, in fact, continues. Now, let me focus more on tigresses, the tiger moms. The job of a mom, a tiger mom, is extremely difficult. They have to do a lot of hard work. In fact, the first picture that you see on the screen was taken by me at Tadoba Tiger Reserve. Even if you go to a jungle 1,000 times, there is no guarantee that you'll ever see a tigress carrying her small cub in her mouth. I was very lucky to get this sighting last year in Tadoba Tiger Reserve. The remaining two images are from my friends. I have taken them, of course, with their due permission. You can see their work involves a lot of hard work. And I'll delve into that. Why exactly being a tiger mom is so difficult. Just imagine raising anywhere between 1 to 4 cubs, 1 to 5 cubs is not easy. Typically you'll also wonder that how does nature determine that a tigress will have 1 cub, she'll have 2 cubs, 3 cubs, 4 cubs. The better the environment, the better the prey base. If the tigress has good access to water, if she has access to good food, she is not, say afraid of poachers, if there is less human intervention, if she's in a nice space, they typically tend to have more cubs than say 1 or 2. And you can also see that journey continues, because I said this is hard work, because a tiger mom has to raise her cubs for 2 years. So she has to take complete care of them for 2 years. For 2 years, these cubs are completely dependent on her. I don't know how many of you have been to a tiger reserve. Can you just raise your hands? How many of you have seen a tiger? Okay, that's great. That's a great number. I'm very happy to see this. If you look at a tiger who's say about 1 years old, or say 1 year, 3-4 months old, they almost, especially the male tigers, they look almost as big as their mom. So just imagine taking care of such big individuals who, you can imagine, their appetite would also, it keeps on increasing. Feeding them throughout these 2 years, ensuring that they survive, ensuring that she's creating the next generation is not an easy job. Typically, not only the tiger community, I'm sure even within us humans, moms are the ones who typically do most of the hard work. Let me go ahead and give you some more insights on tiger moms. As a predator, tigers have a very small gestation period. Now just imagine being a deer. There are different types of deer. There's a chital deer, sambar deer, there can be a mouse deer. Different types of deers in the jungle. Do they have to do a lot of running around? No. Of course, if a predator is after you, say a tiger, leopard, or a wild dog is chasing you, of course you have to run. But most of the time, you sit in one place, you can say graze, you can nicely have grass. So even if a deer is pregnant, she has the luxury of having, say, a long gestation period. Now, how does that help? I'm sure all of you have seen this on, say, Discovery Channel, National Geographic. Typically, when a deer gives birth to a fawn, the minute it is born, they start walking, right? That is true with elephants as well. When an elephant gives birth to a small baby, you can see the elephant baby is up in minutes. The same is with giraffes, say many other species. But then with tigers, they don't have that luxury. You know, a tiger mom has a gestation period of only 3 months because she's a predator. You know, she has to do a lot of running around. You know, it's a lot of hard work in the jungle. I'll come to few more stats ahead, and you will realize how difficult it is to be a tiger mom. So just imagine having a 3 month gestation period. She doesn't have the luxury of giving a birth to a cub who's fully capable, right? From minute one, you know, you have a deer fawn, they are up in a minute, the minute they are born. You know, tigers don't have that luxury. So, you know, tiger mom essentially gets a cub who's completely dependent on her. Let's see how dependent the cub is. So you can see tiger cubs are, you know, they are born blind. For the first 15 days of their life, they cannot even see anything. So, you know, tiger moms, they typically prefer a den, a very secluded site where she can safely keep her cubs. Now, you know, typically a tigress can have anywhere between 1 to 5 cubs, and she has to hide them in a very secluded area of the forest, be it a den or say a crevice where she's not visible. You know, 15 days, the cubs even don't even open their eyes. For first couple of months, they are completely dependent on her milk. Just imagine. Also, the tigress has to feed them. So she has to continuously hunt. Just imagine leaving behind 4 5 cubs, and you go essentially to work, find, say, prey, hunt them. I'll come to the stats. You know, it's not easy. You know, a tigress can attempt to hunt 20 times and she's only successful probably once. So just imagine, that's the success ratio. If she tries 20 times, she'll be lucky once, and she has to go back in time to look after her cubs. The first picture that you saw, the picture that I had from Tadoba Tiger Reserve, which is very much in Maharashtra, you saw the tigress carrying a small cub in her mouth. That cub was probably not even a month old. You know, they constantly keep shifting their cubs. Now just imagine, place yourself in that tiger mom's place, and you see that, oh, you have 4 cubs and you have to constantly keep shifting them. Now you would be wondering, why do they have to keep shifting their cubs? You know, because even tigers are insecure. The tiger is an insecure animal. You know, other tigresses or other tigers can kill her cubs because they don't want, say, other cubs to dominate the forest. They want their own children to do well. So tigers tend to kill other tiger cubs. Even leopards. So even leopard is a predator. It's a carnivore. You know, more tigers, the leopard's kids will have difficulties. So even leopards try to kill tiger cubs. Wild dogs, which are also called dhol in India, they also kill tiger cubs because that is less competition for them, less future competition. So, you know, the tiger mom has to constantly keep shifting her cubs so as to ensure their safety. Also, as I said, a tiger mom would attempt 20 hunts. She might succeed once in 20 attempts. And they typically need, say, a big prey. So what do tigers typically eat? They eat chital deer, they eat sambar deer, they eat wild boar, they eat langurs. But then if you are a tiger mom, typically you'll need a big meal. Say a gaur is a wild bovine, which is found in India. A gaur, a big sambar, that will keep the family fed for 6 7 days. But just imagine, to do that, she has to ensure that her success ratio is at least once in 6 7 days, she has to get a big prey. Just imagine how difficult life would be for her. And she has to do it alone. When I say tiger moms do the bulk of the hard work, you would be wondering, what is the male tiger doing? What is the father doing? You know, the father is not completely useless. Now, I wouldn't say he is completely useless. But then, you know, the male tiger's responsibility is to, say, ensure the safety of the territory. So if he's fathered those cubs, his responsibility is to ensure that no other male tiger enters that territory. That is his job. So, you know, he has one job, and usually they get it right. So I wouldn't say male tigers are completely useless. But you know, I already spoke about this, that how only 1 in 20 hunt attempts are successful makes it all the more difficult to be a tigress. And you know, I also spoke about this, that when tiger cubs are young, typically when we see big tigers, we see that, oh, they are such ferocious creatures. Adult tigers don't have any natural predators except for human beings. So, no other animal essentially can hurt them unless they are messing around with, say, a big crocodile or a big gore. They are pretty safe. But then, young cubs are especially at risk from other tigers, leopards, wild dogs when they are small. And, we already had, say, speakers before me who spoke about how our environment is being damaged. Typically we also see that uh, habitat destruction is a huge challenge when it comes to not only tigers but all, I would say, animals in the jungle. So if we look at tigers, typically they have to move from one jungle to another to establish their territory. But then if there is no habitat, where will they move? Also, another challenge is poaching. Fortunately for India, all of us should be proud that 70% of wild tigers today in the world are in our country. The numbers are increasing. All of us sitting here should be proud of this fact. But, you know, poaching in pockets remains a challenge. It is a challenge. And, just imagine now, if you sum it up, if we see that there is poaching, there is habitat destruction, only 1 in 20 attempts is successful. Leopards, other tigers, wild dogs are keen to eat the cubs. They have to be in such a secretive world. And, typically, in such a challenging environment, the tigress has to take care of the cubs for 2 years. Just imagine how difficult those 2 years would be. And in spite of all these hard, I would say, these efforts, many cubs in the wild, they don't survive. They don't make it to adulthood. How painful it must be for the tigress. I think by now I have painted a very good picture on how tigresses operate in the wild and what are the difficulties they face and what is it that takes, for them to actually raise cubs to adulthood. Now, I want to talk about a real story, and this real story happened last year. And this story, when I read about this story, I almost cried because, I have been going to jungles for almost 20 years, seeing tigers for 12, 13 years. And when I read about this story, after having decent enough knowledge, as I said, I'm still learning. This story was very interesting. There is a tiger reserve called as Sanjay Dubri Tiger Reserve. It's close to another famous tiger reserve called Bandhavgarh in Madhya Pradesh. So actually, this tiger reserve happens to be in 2 states. It's not very famous. They have decent number of tigers there. And the story was, the forest department found a tigress was injured. She was not well and she was lying around near a railway track. Unfortunately, many of our forests in the country, we are building infrastructure, roads, railways pass through jungles. A tigress got hit by a train. She died. She died and she had 4 cubs who were around 8 to 9 months old. Now the thing is, I have shown you the big picture. Do you think the cubs would have survived without their mom? The answer is a big no. 8, 9-month-old cubs without their mom would not survive. But then, surprisingly, the forest department, they saw the 4 cubs. Unfortunately, one of them died. So there was a male tiger who killed one of the cubs. But the 3 remaining cubs, so as I said, tigers have territories. Fortunately, the neighboring territory of this tigress, her sister used to live there. But then she had her own cubs. Can you believe it? This is a Hindi movie story, right? So this is a Hindi movie story being played out in a tiger reserve. So this tigress had her own 4 cubs, and the forest department saw that these 3 orphaned cubs were actually staying with their Mausi. So the forest department actually named her Mausi Ma. You know why? Because this tigress was seen to be taking care of 7 tiger cubs. In the wild, it's extremely difficult to take care of even 1 cub. It's even difficult to, ensure that that grows to adulthood. And this tigress, went against the norms of nature. Because, if she went by common sense, if she went by logic, she should have rejected those 3 cubs. When they walked to her, she should have actually growled and roared and ensured that, oh, go away. I have my own cubs to manage. But then just imagine, the forest department was constantly looking at her, and she adopted those 3 orphaned cubs from her sister, and she taught them everything. She taught them territory marking, how to establish your own territories. She taught them hunting. She was sharing the meals that were meant for her own cubs with the sisters' cubs as well. And this is a 1-year-old story which actually panned out very successfully. These cubs have grown, all 7 of them survived. So, coming to my point, the point is that this was from the animal world, a great example of how you can lead with purpose. She went against common sense, she went against logic, but she led with her heart. She led as a mother. The point was that she not only took care of her own cubs, she also took care of her sister's cubs who would have definitely died. The point is, all of you, if you want to be great leaders in the future, your story cannot be only about yourself. If you truly want to lead with purpose, think of how your story can be bigger than yourselves. We have already seen youngsters here who are already living that life wherein they already have found that purpose. They are leading with purpose. And if you want to do the same in your life, find a story bigger than yourself. Act against convention, act against logic. If that is for the betterment of people around you, that is for the betterment of the world. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much. Bye.